This segment is a continuation of the prior one on compositing using layer masks. And in this part 2, we'll learn how to take a second capture and add it in to a composite image. So what we're looking at here now is the image of the Hochgrimskirche that we masked out in the previous segment. And if I Option or Alt click on the mask here, we can take a look at the grayscale mask that we created in the last segment. Okay, what we'd like to do now is take those dramatic clouds that I got in a separate capture and add them into this image. So to do that, step 1 is find the picture of the clouds you want and open that as a separate Photoshop document. Okay, here I've got it. Now the problem is, though, it's in a separate document. I need to get these clouds into the first Photoshop document. So again, there's a few ways to do that in Photoshop. What I think is the easiest, though, is just go ahead and open the second image in Photoshop the way I've done here. Go over to the layer stack at the bottom right. Right-click on the layer, and from the menu, pick Duplicate Layer. You'll get a pop-up, like shown in the middle here. And in the middle of that pop-up, there's a little drop-down under Destination Document. If I take that pull down, I see the documents that I have open in Photoshop. And this first one is the document where we've got the cathedral masked out. So I'll click there, click OK. And now if I flip over to that first document, I see we have a new layer in the layer stack, clouds. But it looks odd, right? If I look in the middle, I don't see the whole picture of the clouds. I just see a little piece of that. Why? Well, it's because this image and the picture of the cathedral have different pixel dimensions. One way I can manipulate this image now is to do a free transform. But before I do that, another problem we have is that the clouds are on the top of the layer stack, so they're blotting out everything else. I'm going to click and drag the cloud layer down under the Hochgrimskirche layer, and now I see the cathedral in front of the clouds. That's what I really had in mind, but I don't see either the part of the cloud image that I want or maybe enough of it. So probably the easiest way to fix this is highlight the clouds layer, and on the Mac do a Command T for free transform, which would be Control T on the PC. Let me do that now. I see a bounding box, or a part of a bounding box, that looks like I'm looking at the top left corner of the cloud image. But if I do a Command 0, which would be Control 0 on the PC, now I see a bounding box for the entire clouds image. And I can do all kinds of transforms now on this pixel layer. I could move it, I could scale it, I could rotate it, I could flip it, left to right or top to bottom. Right, all these geometric transforms, and in addition, some nonlinear transforms also. But what I'll do first is just click and drag with the mouse, and that's simply going to move this clouds layer around. And since I can only see a small piece of it, I'm just looking now at the piece of the clouds layer or image that fits into this masked out area of the cathedral. Maybe something like that. Now that I have it in about the right spot, I'm going to do a Command plus to zoom in a little bit. And that's not bad. Now I'm going to click and drag a little more to try and get the positioning just the way I want it. If I wanted to scale it, by the way, let me do a Command 0 again to see the whole box. What I would do is I would grab a corner and stretch it in to make it smaller, stretch it out to make it larger. But if before I do that, if I hold down the Shift key, it'll preserve the aspect ratio of this image so that it won't get distorted. So I'll just show you that. Here I'm scaling it down. Now I can see more of the clouds, or I could scale it up. I'll leave it about where it was. Now let me zoom in again to get the positioning. That's not bad right there. So now I'm going to click on that little checkbox at the top of the screen to accept the transform. There we go. So now we can see both the church and the clouds, but the tone is wrong, right? The church is too light, the clouds are too dark. What I would do here is to use adjustment layers to change the tone of both of those pixel layers. I'm not going to stop and explain adjustment layers here in this segment. If you're interested, I explain them thoroughly in my workshop on non-destructive editing using Photoshop. You can find that on my website. But let me just add them here. I'm going to add a curves layer right above the clouds, and I'm going to lighten those clouds up a little bit just so they match the tone of the church a little better, maybe something like that. And then above the church I'm going to add another curve, but clip it to just the church, and here I'm going to darken and add contrast to that church. And I won't try and get it perfect, but at least closer to the way the church would look on this overcast and cloudy sky. Maybe something like that. All right, so that's better. Now, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to do some Command plus, which would be Control plus on the PC. And we can see, having zoomed in, that the haloing that we thought we had eliminated is back. Right? Now, a couple of ways to deal with that. If the haloing is everywhere, we could use our select and mask task space just the way we did before to manipulate the mask. It looks to me, though, it's really just on the upper part of the cathedral. I'm going to do a Command minus to zoom out a little bit. The cross and these lower sections of the cathedral look fine. It's just the upper part of the cathedral where I see the haloing. So I'd like to selectively adjust this mask on just those portions. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on my lasso tool, and I'm going to lasso that part of the cathedral image where I want to adjust the mask, right about in here. Okay, so everything inside that area, I want to adjust the mask. I'm going to click on the mask. I'm going to click to zoom in a little bit so I can see it better. And now I'm going to go up to my menu bar, pick on Filter, Other, Minimize. Now, there's a pull down here that's important. At the bottom of the minimum parameters, you can pick squareness or roundness. Not sure what those terms mean, but pick roundness because it lets me adjust the minimization by fractions of pixels rather than whole pixels. And the lowest setting is all the way over here at like 0.2. There I can still see the haloing along the mask. As I inch that slider up, let's move it up to something more like 1.2. Okay, now you can see the haloing's going away. Let's inch it up a little more. 1.9, just about gone. A little more. 2.8. I think it's gone. All right, we could pan around a little bit. I'm going to hold down the space bar and click and drag. Yep, haloing's gone. This is a great trick for manipulating the edges of layer masks. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to hit Command D, which would be Control D on the PC to make the selection go away, Command 0 to zoom out, and there we go. I've got a very respectable start on this rendering. Now, just to keep the segment short, I'm not going to complete the rendering. Go ahead and adjust the tone, map it to black and white, etc., the way I did in the finished image. Let me just click over to a copy of the finished image, and you can see that by suitably adjusting the contrast and the tone, here I've mapped it to black and white, we can increase the impact of the image. So that wraps it up for this segment.